Hello and welcome to the Life After Diets podcast. I'm Sarah Dosanjh, psychotherapist and author of the book, I Can't Stop Eating.
And I'm Stefanie Michele, binge recovery health coach. If you feel out of control around food, we get it because we've been there.
Thank you for joining our conversations about how to make peace with food and feel more comfortable in our bodies.
Now on to this week's episode.
Do you have an amazing intro?
Huh?
Do you have an amazing intro for us?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Okay.
It really is.
Okay.
It's very amazing.
The idea for this episode came to me, one, because of a couple of things that I'm going through at the moment that I'm sure we'll talk about, but also when I was editing our Inner Rebel episode, I remember you talking about like how angry you were with your body, that your body wasn't a certain size, that your body was never naturally going to be a certain shape, and how that led to this rebellion, which turned into restriction for you. Speak to that.
It's all I can speak of. When you suggested this episode topic, I thought about it and I was like, okay, how else can I talk about it? Like, what else can I talk about besides how it relates to my body image? And I came up with nothing. I can accept aging. For example, when I wake up in the night now, my left ankle, I hobble like I think you should see me. You'd think I was 95. And I'm okay with that. There's a part of me that's like, oh, my joints aren't as resilient as they used to be. Even when I got Lyme disease, and there was this period of time where I was thinking, gosh, this might really affect my joints and I'm not going to be able to, just sort of move the same way. I mean, of course, I was catastrophizing at the time and predicting my future. But even then, there was some kind of frustration around it for sure, but not a sense of anger and resentment of my own body. The only place that has existed for me so far is in body image. So there is a sense of it's not fair. Like, it's not fair that no matter what I do, my body wants to do this other thing, and that my appetite will always point me towards that. Like if I restrict, my appetite increases to the point where I end up binging, right? Like if I were to try to control that. And that is there's still sometimes a sense of, especially with getting dressed and things like that, or shopping, like it's kind of like, oh, it's not fair. It's not fair. And it's very childlike in my mind, because it's not fair was this thing in my house. I remember my dad used to say to us, life's not fair, and all of us would always be like, it's not fair. And my kids say it's not fair all the time. And I'm like, it doesn't have to be. No one promised you fairness. But justice is a human value. Like it can be such a human value and a natural inclination that we have towards things being fair. But that is a place where it's like you really feel this lack of control and that there's nothing you can do about it. And when you accept that there is nothing you can do about it, because I think I didn't accept that for a long time, which is why I kept trying and kept dieting and kept restricting with this belief that helped me out, I think, because it was like, yes, you can change it. Yes, you can change it. And then when I came to this process of no, this is your genetic code. Sometimes you feel just like it's not fair, and it has to do with privilege. And I want to preface this by saying I have a lot of privilege in many ways. And so I have to check it. You know what I mean? Like I understand that this is the least, like this, to not have thin privilege is a big deal, but there's other privileges that I hold. But there are times when I feel like it would be so much easier if my body would fit into X size. You know what I mean? Like it would just be easier for me. And sometimes the lack of that ease feels unfair. And I allow that now by just giving myself the space to be like, oh, it feels so unfair. It feels so unfair sometimes.
Are there any things that you're frustrated about or wish, let me put it this way, is there anything that you wish that your body could actually do, not aesthetically, that it can't, and you've resolved that, or you are trying to resolve that, or you can't resolve that?
No, because the one thing that I have developed a lot of gratitude for is like I have a strong body, I have a flexible body, I have actually hyper flexible joints that are actually more prone to injury because of that, but I can do all the things that I want to do, and my size doesn't interfere with that. So I do actually feel grateful for that. The place where I said that gets interrupted is as I'm noticing I'm getting older, and when I run now, I kind of pay for it in my ankles. My ankles really bear a lot of that. But I don't know why I don't feel that level of anger. I just have sometimes like oh man, that's annoying. That's frustrating. That stinks. And I'm not young anymore and my joints don't just bounce back the next day. But I don't struggle with it.
This is so fun because those two things we've just spoken about, I'm like the complete opposite on both of them. From the aesthetics perspective, I'll go, oh man, I wish I could wear those clothes. I wish, it would be nice if, but oh well, that's kind of how it is. It's a shame, but I'm all right. But when it comes to what my body can do, or rather what it can't do, or when it responds with pain, when I'm trying to coax it, shall we say, to do things, even when I try and do it from a really gentle place, I'm not talking about what I would think is over exercising, because it wouldn't be for someone else. So there's a comparison piece in that. I think about what my body can do versus what I think it should be able to do. Can I ask you this question? Would you rather, did you have at school like different, we call it different sets for different subjects? You'd have like a top set for English, middle set, and bottom
We
set.
had that. We didn't call it that, but yes.
Yeah. So are you somebody who would rather be the top person in the bottom set or the bottom person in the top set? Do you see what I mean? Like being the best in the class, but at a lower level class, or being like at the bottom of the class in a higher level class?
Higher level. Bottom at
Really?
the higher level. Yeah.
We're all about the opposites today. Yeah, and I feel like that's the right answer though. What you say
Oh, I feel like it's
is
not.
really? Oh
Yeah.
no. This is another one. Are you just being contrary now?
No, I feel like you have the more respectable answer.
No, I feel like you have the more respectable answer, because I feel like if you are at the bottom of a higher level class, you're going to learn and you're going to get better and you're going to be challenging yourselves. And it's the humbling position to be in. Whereas to be top of the bottom set is, for me, I don't know, it's more of a ego driven, I don't want to do something that I'm going to be the worst at.
I understand that perspective. However, I think of it the opposite way. I think it's more ego driven to want to be at the top. It's like
But it's bottom of the top.
I know, but it's still like, I'm at the top, but I'm at the top. And even if I'm struggling, I'm still at the top.
What about then, sorry, follow-up question. What about then
Are we in therapy? Is this episode for you, Sarah? Because I'm all about it.
Oh,
yeah,
100%. This is for me. This is for me. What is your attitude towards trying something that you don't expect to be good at with other people who are good at it?
I expect to get better.
That feels like the right answer.
Maybe so, but I do. Innately, I feel like if you're putting me in something I don't feel like I could do, I'm like, the drive increases, because I also feel like it's possible. Because if you've got people to learn from and you're in an environment that's immersing in, where there's like, here, you're amongst things and like, this is something you can do. I feel like, great. It's very invigorating to be like, I'm going to do this until I get it. I suppose I've never been in a situation where I felt like for example, my husband, Mike, is very mechanical minded. And so if you put me in if you dump me in his work, I would be amongst people that could do things a lot better than me in that realm. And but I have no interest in doing it. It doesn't mean anything to me. And I would probably give up. I would just be like, I don't want. But if it's meaningful to me, then I can. I feel like my brain would want to enough to learn and to grow and to evolve. And that would inspire me to stay and to do. I don't mind being the underdog. In fact, I think I thrive on it. So I have been an underdog my whole life. Like, I have been the one who's under the radar and underestimated. And that is like, well, watch, give me time. So I'm comfortable in that role.
Yeah, I think I'm the one who's been overestimated. That's probably why. It's like there's only one way to go when people overestimate your capabilities on something. It's making me think of 2 years ago, I tried paddleboarding with a couple of friends who did paddleboarding and they could paddleboard. And I couldn't get it. And it was so frustrating. And the minute, it's like very early on, I'm like, I can't do this. I can't do this. And I'm with people who can do it. And now I just feel, and it's such an embodied thing as well, right? You're using your body to hold yourself there. Oh God, I just remember it really at the time left me feeling miserable.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
The people that you were with, was there an expectation that you should get that, like, you would be good at this?
Not necessarily, not particularly, not overtly.
Did
I think
you
I
have
just
an expectation?
Yeah, of course I did.
Okay.
Yeah. I was like, this looks like so much fun. And this is going to be my latest thing. Because I just moved to the beach at this time. And I was like, I'm going to learn how to paddleboard, and I'm going to be that person who has their own paddleboard, and this is what I do.
How much time did you give it?
Oh, like a good 30 minutes, Steph. Good 30 minutes.
Did you ever go back?
That might be generous. Did I what?
Did you try it again?
No.
This is not a whole story then. Like
Yeah.
we don't know if you absolutely could have taken.
No, this is talking about my process. This is not a
Yeah.
neat story with a great ending. No, this is talking about this process.
I find a lot of value, and my dad, I think, instilled this in us. There is value in the grit, right? So there's something about, even if you are terrible at something, like the fact that you show up and you keep showing up and you keep trying and you keep trying and you're giving it your effort. That to me is like, I win because I do that. You know what I mean? I don't mean I do that. I mean, if someone does that, and it's not like I do that everywhere. I think there's times where I get discouraged and I don't. But I respect people who continue to show up even against, even if they're not that good. I think that there's I have a lot of respect for that. I think there's a lot of integrity in that. So to me, that's how I can cocoon myself in it. It's kind of like, I might not be good at this thing, but I'm trying, and I keep coming back and I keep standing back up again. And that to me is part of the value of it.
Well, that's the right answer, right? And I massively judge myself that I'm not doing that. Because what you say there, like that is what, like, I admire grit. All the things that you say, I know all the things that you're saying cognitively, and I remember saying actually, it really helped at the time. I said to my brother, when I was doing my therapy studies and we had to write our essays and dissertation and things like that, I said to him something about not feeling guilty, but feeling like from the effort to reward ratio, I felt bad. Actually, I can write an essay. I can give the tutors what they want, and I can get through with pretty minimal effort. And people in my class wouldn't believe me, because people would always want to know, like, oh, how long did you spend on your essay? And they would ask these questions, which I would answer honestly. And I could see, like, they looked pissed off because there is no effort in that. It isn't grit. It isn't integrity. Right. And I remember saying this to my brother, and he just laughed and he said, you're a Dosanjh. We are path of least resistant people. And it's true. Like, there's been it's a bit black and white. There hasn't been much of a work ethic instilled into me from my home life, shall we say. Okay. It's always this path of least resistance. There's that experiment that they did on kids where some of the kids were told they were smart, some of the kids told that they tried really hard. The conclusion is it was always better to try harder, and they were much more likely to succeed and put more into the next task. What I feel like happens, and I think this is partly, I feel like when I try and do it differently, I end up just getting frustrated about that. So to kind of bring it back to my body, there have been times, this was during my eating disorder, so I signed up to they called it a kilomathon. Started training for that, got knee pain, had to stop, could never do the race. I signed up for a half marathon, which again started training, and I would get pain, I get joint pain and whatever, and then stop for that. I got a place on the London Marathon, and that's when my foot was really bad, and I did my foot in. I did manage to do one half marathon. And so this has come up again with this yoga teacher training I'm going to do. So in August, I'm going to be in India for 3.5 weeks doing yoga teacher training. And it's pretty intensive days. It's 6 a.m. till 9 p.m. So I thought to myself, when I saw how intense the schedule was, and I thought about how difficult, even being in New York and walking around, I was getting foot pain, and that was frustrating. A couple of times I did a YouTube exercise thing, and another time I went to Orange Theory. And both of them left me feeling really unwell for like another day afterwards. And these don't feel like big pushes, right? And I know my body's different to everyone's body. And this is the frustration point that I hit. But I was thinking to myself, okay, whenever I've pushed my body, it's not worked very well. But this is yoga, right? So all I've got to do is actually my yoga, and I'll get stronger, and I'll build more stamina and more flexibility. And it's like, the minute I started trying to push my body just pushed back. And then I was getting wrist pain. And again, this wasn't from doing a lot of yoga. This was just upping it minimally from what I already do. And then my wrist starts hurting. And then my back starts hurting. I've never had sciatica before, but I've had sciatic pain. And even now, in really gentle back pains, I'm getting spasms in the bottom of my back. And my supervisor, who I absolutely love, who supervises my work, a fellow therapist. I was talking to her, and we talk about all kinds of things in supervision. Sometimes I talk about my clients, but yeah. And I don't know, she's like, she reminds me, you know how some people remind you of an animal? She reminds me of a wise owl. That's who she is. She's this really gentle, wise owl, and I really respect and value her opinion.
Do you know that no one's ever reminded me of an animal?
No one's ever reminded you of an animal?
No,
You don't?
not at all, but I respect the metaphor, but go ahead.
Okay, well, thank you for respecting my metaphor.
I like it. I think it's cool. I think it's...
But no one's ever reminded you of an animal?
No.
Okay.
Except for the guy in the office where someone said that what's his name, looked like a praying mantis, and then I could totally see it. But I don't know. That would not be, no. I wouldn't think of it first.
Yeah, fair enough.
You just said it to me like, you know how you do? And I'm like, no,
Yeah.
but
No, I don't know how you do. Well, I realized it throughout the conversation, and she does this thing. She doesn't just point something out to me. She does this magical thing where she makes me realize something. And what I realized through that conversation with her was I'd put this pressure on myself because I've been so nervous about whether I'm going to be able to keep up when I go. This is why I asked you about being bottom of the class.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, if I were to go tomorrow in my current state of fitness and how my body feels, I will be at the bottom of the class by a long way. And she was basically saying / getting me to say and realize that it's okay just to show up. I could go tomorrow and just show up with my body as it is and just do what my body can.
Yes.
Like, it's okay not to be able to keep up. You're going there to learn how to teach. And when we were having this conversation, I could feel my whole body kind of relax. And I didn't realize how much I'd been carrying this for the last few weeks, this pressure I've been putting on myself, feeling stressed when I've only managed to do a small amount of yoga. My whole yoga practice has taken on, or had taken on, a whole other flavor. And I wasn't doing it for what I used to do it for. And even my flexibility seemed to be reducing. Like, it's like my body was resisting poses that it could get into before. It was tightening up because I was in this different relationship with my body. So I felt this enormous freedom, like something lifted off me after that conversation. But then on the yoga mat yesterday, when I was doing a very gentle back bend, my back started spasming. And I was like, I could feel that, frustration rising up in me again.
So can we just talk that moment through? So let's say that you're in a position that's a gentle back bend and your back starts spasming. Let's say you're on the mat in India and this happens. What might you do?
I don't know. Stop.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I don't have a choice, but it doesn't feel like I'm choosing to stop. My body's going to make me stop, which feels really disempowering. You know, that it's not fair thing. My mind wants to. My body is saying no, in my mind, for no good reason. I'm not even trying to push it very far.
I think that's the part where there's lots of different options here, right? Like, but there's a story about stopping for you, and it doesn't have to be that story. So it's a good place, I think, to explore. Like, to me, I'm thinking about it. I don't have a relationship with yoga, and I'm also, that's part of it. Like, you might also feel some self-expectation because you do yoga and now you're going to get this yoga training and people on the podcast know you do yoga and you're going to come back with this. So there might be something of like, I better show up. So if I were to go and have something my body couldn't do, I'm going to put it to my ankle because that would be the place where I would be limited, or my lower back. I might stop. And isn't that the point kind of yoga of having that relationship ongoing and sort of like seeing what's there? Like, oh, my body's responding in this way, and that's frustrating, and I feel frustrated. And so I'm going to stop or modify or take a break or pause and feel that thing. Like, the point is to see what comes up as you do these things like that. Isn't that part of the point? I mean, I think there's other points of like flexibility and things like that, but more what comes up in that relationship with our bodies in that moment. And part of the yoga practice might be the pause, right? You know what I mean? Not necessarily the back bend.
I hope so. There's so many different yoga classes and yoga styles, and this is vinyasa, which is kind of one of the harder ones. It's the flows. They say it's the one they always talk about. It's bringing heat to the body, and it's like, no, it just burns like a mofo, right? It's not bringing heat to the body. It's basically saying like, This is hard. That's why your body's getting hot, because you're doing something hard, which again is very different to my experience. And I just found with the flows, with my wrists and moving my wrists under my weight is causing quite a bit of pain, and that feels quite foundational to this particular style of yoga. So
Yeah.
there's all this. I don't. It's it's the uncertainty, I guess, as well.
It's also, I mean, like I'm trying to, it's so easy for me to say it because like you said, we're flipped because I can't apply this as much to the body image part because there is, so to me, I understand that it's not fair. My body should be able to do this. When it comes to this kind of thing, I don't have that visceral sense. I have more of a, oh, this stinks. Like I'm frustrated by that. I wish that I could, but this is what I'm working with. This is the limitation of my body at this moment, or maybe for the rest of my life. And how can I work around that? And to me, I feel like there's a workaround, whether it's I'm going to pause then and find value in that and I'm going to get something from that, or I'm going to modify the exercise so that it works for me and there's some value in that. Like there's something to be gained. But for body image, it's like just a darn, it's not fair and there's a fire in me about it versus a cognitive frustration. You know what I mean? So I can respect that it's not so easy. It just happens to be flipped, you know, like we say for both. But maybe there's something to learn from. I would appreciate hearing from you how you see that. Because I, you know, in the same way that you might appreciate from me hearing my perspective on the body's limitations.
If you would like to come and connect with us in person, we're going to be in Dublin on Saturday, the 16th of September 2023. We're going to be teaming up with the Intuitive Eating Hub for a workshop, followed by a social at a local Irish pub. We would love to meet you and hope you can join us.
And don't forget, you can still join our community of listeners by signing up on Patreon for access to monthly support calls, an active private Facebook group, and regular Ask Us Anything bonus calls. Links for Dublin and for the community are in the show notes.
I feel like when it comes to what my body looks like, that I really accepted that is very little of that is within my control. And so that feels okay. When it comes to what my body can do, and whether I try to do this or whether I try this or whether I pull back, like I feel this responsibility. And that is what is most frustrating, because it's like, did I do it wrong? Should I have done it differently? I'm taking this responsibility for my body hurting or not being able to do this.
How come?
Or something.
Like, why is it different, I guess, to
Because
assume that your body's shape?
It's come more as a result of my actions.
How?
Because my wrist is hurting, because I'm doing this. Have I pushed my body beyond the limits? Should I have listened sooner? At what point is there discomfort in the body with movement or something that's okay to push through, and when not? Because what happens, I feel discomfort and then I push through and then injury. So it's this frustration with not knowing at what point to stop, because if I stop sooner than the injury, I think there's going to be part of me that's going, well, you could have done more. Well, you should have done more.
Got it. Does this exist elsewhere, like not within the body? Do you do this in other places emotionally or?
Probably. I'm trying to think of an example. Probably. I mean, I even noticed a little bit, and I had to catch myself with this one with my food choices when I was thinking about going and doing more yoga. And I was putting this bit of a pressure on myself to eat a bit better. And I noticed this kind of knock-on effect of a bit more judgment and a bit less like free, and noticing that my desire for the certain foods that I think are not as ideal for yoga and the whole yoga wellness lifestyle is increasing. And it was increasing because I started judging myself about them again. So that was creeping in too. So this one really blindsided me, Steph, because I did not expect signing up to go and do yoga teacher training to bring up as like all this stuff that has felt pretty dormant.
Yeah. But what an opportunity. I like to use your own advice, like being curious about all of this. And to me, it's like, well, there's still so much potential here. Like to be in a position where your wrist starts talking to you and to say like, okay, is this a place where I push or I pull back? There isn't a right and wrong, but just a data collection, the way we talk about with food, you know, like it's the same thing. It's just like, can you stay in conversation with your wrist? Maybe the point isn't about like to get as far as you absolutely can, but to keep the conversation open with your wrist or whatever.
And I know this Like, this
Okay.
is a lesson that I have learned before several times, and I just keep forgetting. So when my supervisor somehow, like, this realization comes out, and I'm like, "Oh." And the minute I took that pressure off with the yoga, and I thought it's okay to just turn up at whatever level of fitness or injury or whatever's going on in my body, I'm just going to turn up, and that needs to be okay. She keeps saying to me, Sarah, she goes, I just want you to feel that it's okay to turn up as you. And she says this in so many other things. She's like a little cheerleader in my corner. She's great. And yeah, I thought, yeah, of course it is. Like, it's okay to turn up and not be able to do the things. It's just, there's another part of me that
Mm.
can be dormant and then can be like activated by
Yeah,
something.
who's that? What is that part?
I think it's the part that puts value on being good at things. It's the part that becomes outcome driven instead of process driven. It's like it wants this measurable result. Like it's that part. It's a part that's like, well, you're supposed to do well and you're supposed to achieve because that's where you find your value. And I know that that's not true. I know that that's not true. And then I forget it for a bit.
But it's in the body somewhere.
Yeah.
How does it protect you? What value does it have to go back to our workbooks? How does that part have a point?
How does that part have a point? I think it's just trying to meet some quite primal needs of, you know, recognition and security and trying to find value and purpose, but it's just looking in the wrong place.
Mm.
It's just misguided.
I also think, and I had a conversation on the phone with my sister yesterday about this. What if you validate the part? Like, I think it makes sense. We live in a culture where outcomes are important sometimes, and they are valuable to some people. And yeah, it gets things done. You know what I mean? There is some esteem we get from outcomes. So to me, that part of you isn't entirely misguided. It's like it's based on some evidence you have, and it does feel good to be good at stuff and to have good outcomes. So there's a part of it that's fair,
Mhm.
and just to sort of be like, yeah, I get it. I get you. I
Yeah.
just don't want you to take over,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Get in the back seat.
Yeah.
So, let me drive for a bit, please.
Yeah. I need some other drivers, you know?
Yeah.
2, sometimes that part of you might be resourceful.
Yeah. So the part of you then, I'm going to push it back onto you. The part that feels it's unfair
Mm.
about the body image, like what is that part doing for you? The part that's angry.
It's hard to see how it's helpful. It's such a stubborn digging my heels. It's a boundary. It's like it's the part of me that wants to say no and wants that no to be heard and
Mhm.
respected and like to fend for myself. Again, I'm going to echo you. I know that it's like in the wrong place. It's in the wrong place.
I know you know. Like,
But
yeah.
it was also the primary place that began. So it was the first sense I had of self-defense. It was wrong. I mean, for lack of a better word, it was a very misguided place for it to be, but it was the first place I learned it. And therefore it has a place in my system. Like I don't know that we ever truly undo that. I've come to believe we kind of don't. Like, I'm okay with that though, as long as I know that I have awareness about it. Because then I could do the thing where you're like, I know this isn't true. I know this is in the wrong place. I need to move my attention elsewhere. I need to consciously and intentionally and with some effort bring it over here. But there is always, I think, going to be a triggerability in that spot because that's the first place that I understood self-defense. Unfortunately. You know what I mean? Like that was the first place where I actually started to say no because I couldn't say it out in the world to the people I needed to say it to or to the things I needed to say it to. So I started saying it there. But it was a sense of saying no to something that I deemed to be unfair. Unfortunately. Yeah, it just landed there. And I think for many of us this is true.
Mhm.
I think for many people who struggle with body image, it could have been the first place that we felt we had any control over a no. And tried. And then we learn later, this isn't actually a place. It's not the right place for it. Also, we can't.
Mhm.
It's not out to get you. That's not the thing. But now it's locked in our nervous system. So we have to constantly be like, there's my trigger. Gotta override.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of that visceral moment when I had this realization because I had no idea I was putting this pressure on myself. that's the bizarre thing. I had
Yeah.
no idea that I was carrying this. And then when I saw it, and I literally went like, of course. And I just started laughing. I just held my head and I was like, of course, I can see what I'm doing. I can see how I'm making this, creating this, making this bigger. And when I had that realization, I literally like my shoulders just dropped.
Yeah.
And for me, I think if I realize, I might have said this before on the podcast, I've been saying this a lot recently in my sessions for some reason, because it's just been quite apt. But it was Katie who wrote the Fed Up book.
Yes, Katie Barreria. I know.
Well, when she came on my YouTube channel, she said to me, and I don't know if this was her original thought or whether she'd heard it somewhere else, that being a human being is just this one long process of remembering and forgetting and remembering and forgetting. Because so many times with clients, we come back round to the same place and they're like, oh yeah, like I knew this. Oh, and they get frustrated with themselves.
Oh, yes.
They forgot. And so what I am committed to doing is whenever I've had to accept that I'm going to learn things and forget things and learn things and forget things. When I remember or I'm reminded, doesn't matter if it comes from me or someone else, is to just really appreciate the fact that it's been remembered.
Yeah.
And that was the energy that I felt on the Tuesday. I was like, of course. Oh, thank goodness. I can see what I'm doing. I can see how I'm creating this for myself. Everything's okay. Of course I can show up as I am. Like, of course it doesn't matter if I need to stop. Of course it doesn't matter.
Yes, I love this.
And to be able to laugh at ourselves as well. I think the energy that can kind of come through that, it's just so centering and sort of resetting.
I love that so much. That's all I want to say. I did a closet coaching a few weeks ago on this, but I love this. I didn't conceptualize it like remembering and forgetting. I said something like, that I'd had a session. I don't know if I had a therapy session or something happened where I was like, wait, I'm here again? Like I learned this so long ago. Like I'm here again. And it's that. It's like, yep. And we're going to keep doing that. And it takes away the pathology of you didn't regress. You just forgot, which we do. And then we remember and like, oh, yeah. Like, and I think you get more proficient every time you remember, but you can still keep forgetting. And again, maybe that's to do with this core thing that got instilled somewhere and you can't get it out. So it just keeps popping up. But it is such a relief when you're like, oh, right, I already worked this out. I figured this one. I gotta reapply.
Yeah. So I'm conscious we're coming up to time. I wonder if we can segue into a Dublin plug.
Okay.
It's kind of apt.
If you forgot, we are going to be in Dublin.
Yeah. Someone's going to be going, oh yeah, I remember now. Be grateful for the reminder that we're going to be in Dublin.
For anyone who's wanted to, I feel like I'm speaking on behalf of Americans, but for anyone who's wanted to go visit Ireland or see Dublin, might be a good excuse to take a long weekend. I'm going for a nice 4-day weekend and come visit us and come visit. What would you call it? How do you say island?
What do you mean? How do you say island?
Like the way they say it.
Ireland.
Visit Ireland. The land of the leprechauns. Is that is that not allowed? You're not speaking. Is this wrong?
I don't think it's offensive yet. I think we're still allowed.
Maybe in the future, though. And also, I said it in an Indian accent, which I didn't mean to do.
If anyone's listening to this in the future and that's now an offensive thing to say, please remember that this is of its time. And also, I have heard that September is the best time of year to visit Ireland.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No, it's because I made it up. But on the Saturday, the 16th of September, Stef and I will be in Ireland in Castleknock, just outside Dublin, hosting a workshop on the inner critic. And we're going to go out and socialize and go to an Irish pub and have a drink and a dance. So
part of what we talked about today was part of the inner critic workshop, the parts.
Yes. So come join us. Come hang out with us in September. We'd love to meet you. And
can I just tell you, can we just leave with this like big thought? This is not news to anybody, I don't think, but like I read somewhere yesterday that the stars we see in the sky are obviously like I didn't realize, I think this is that they could be, did they say hundreds of millions of years old? So what we're seeing is actually the past. And I know that that's true. I've already known that, but it was reminded, like I remembered it again. And I was like, to me, this is, I sit with that.
Ireland's supposed to be great for stargazing as well, you know. I've heard that.
I just think it's so cool that you're looking at the past. I just think it's the coolest thing. Fascinating. My mind can't get around it. Anyway, see y'all next week.